Welcome back. Hi, Jeannie.
Hello, Cyndi.
Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Cyndi Silva. I'm here with Jeannie Zandi. We're continuing our string of conversations. I believe this is the fifth one and the final one in this series. And we're talking about relationship and the sacred, or sacred relationships, however it blends in and finds its way into the conversation. But we had touched on this on our last conversation about healing in relationship, and this topic of the sacred came up, and we really wanted to go a little deeper into this. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Jeannie, and let you launch.
Speak.
Launch.
Perf. I've been having a string of silly goose days here, so we'll see how it goes. We actually have to start our talk about relationship by laughing, because I think relationship across the board makes fools out of all of us because we have an idea how we think it should go, and we're just so very human. And particularly mixing the sacred with kind of the humanness, a lot of humor is kind of necessary, I think, for the exploration. So what shall I say?
The humor, the ability to laugh at ourselves.
Yeah, and each other, if it's if it's not derisive. Yeah. So I think when people expect that one is going to talk about relationship and spirituality, that we're going to talk about things like soulmates and all that kind of stuff, and that's really not my interest at all. Because for me, it doesn't start out there with the soulmate. It starts in here with this soulmate and this. And as long as there's as long as we're on earth, everything here is relating. Everything here is, even breath. We just started the kind of ground floor of our embodiment. Consciousness is noticing breath. Breath is relating to body. Body is relating to weight and earth. Body is relating to chair, just at that very elemental level. And it's happening. It's not something we have to make happen. It's not something that we necessarily have to fix, unless, if we're having a relationship with a tack that we stepped on, we might want to pull it out of our foot. But I just want to say that relating and oneness simultaneously are already here doing their thing.
Yeah.
And when we leave this attending to, noticing, being immersed in the immediacy of the already happening festival of relating, to go up in the head, to flee this, we are then forever searching for the missing piece. Wasn't it Shel Silverstein that wrote that poem about searching for the missing piece? We're forever searching for the missing piece that's actually a disconnection in ourselves. And to use any kind of relationship, whether it's mundane relationship or soulmate or this or that, to try and fill that sense of something is missing, we are going to be chasing our tail and assigning someone across from us the job of making our missing piece disappear, which will only piss them off eventually and frustrate us and end in some kind of but you were supposed to do this for me sort of thing. So the first thing I want to do out of the gate is just kind of throw a wrench in the whole usual way that a lot of spiritual talk about relationship. If we could only find the soulmate, we'd manifest our soulmate, and then la, 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 the unicorns come and everything's good. Not to say that a nice pal who we have some things in common with, who loves the truth like we do, isn't a bonus. But if we neglect the main event, the issue at hand, which is this, and our consciousness's relationship to body, to creature, to breath, to animal, to emotion, to the things that live here, that's the soil out of which either unity outpictures itself or separation outpictures itself. So I'll start there.
I love it. I love it because I feel that is, when you have that person who's that complement and that reflection of that inner marriage, right? That it seems that would be more of a reflection of that wholeness inside. And when it's not working and there's like an attaching to and a projecting on, and that's not working out the way the part that's seeking wants it to, then there's that is the reflection of something not copacetic inside of us, right? That we're not completely present to what's here now. And one more thing is that consciousness, like that's its sole intention, if you will, if there is such a thing. Consciousness's intention is to have the experience of embodiment. And when our attention is elsewhere, then it does feel like there's something missing or something's not right. And like you say, we go out seeking it and attaching to other people to fulfill that. So I love that we're launching this with some radical truth here. It's seemingly radical, but it's realism, but it feels a little radical that it's so simple.
Well, and the simple is not always necessarily easy. Otherwise, we would all take these simple spiritual truths and just repeat them and bliss would occur. But dang it. So here, I've been a serial monogamist. It almost sounds like a serial killer. Just one relationship after another, because the whole thing fascinates me. It's been a study of my life, and the study of my life, particularly also how beings who are conditioned so very differently, women and men, possibly can translate ourselves to each other. And that's been really interesting. But whenever we look outward, which I started with my first boyfriend at 13, just wild crush, looking outward all the way. Like, look at that being, look at him on a Stingray bike. He has a Stingray bike like me. Oh my God, must be near. Whenever we look out, the beauty of looking out is that we get to have lots of experiences that help us to learn and develop wisdom. All of the looking out has reflected me back to myself. What am I looking for over there? That's clearly not working. Landing me back in myself, as well as all of the different sorts of humans reflect something different about us. Each human that we dance with is like a mirror, not only in the, oh, they're annoying me, so that must be something about me department, but also we like each other. We reflect to each other things that we wouldn't have ever known. Oh my God, you're so funny. I am. Oh my God, you're so present. I am. These kind of things that are, it's like we learn about our instrument and what we're sitting inside of and what it's like through this reflection, which can be also fun, not just exasperating. At the same time, one of the things that has stood out to me so very much, and I really had no idea, even though I would hear this spiritual truth here or there, I didn't know how to translate it into my experience. The spiritual truth that it's all an inside job. It's all, don't look for it all out there. It's in here. And when everything in here is lined up, then you're not going to be looking for anything anymore. I was like, no, really? No. And obviously, hugs feel differently when someone else hugs us, and snuggles feel differently when someone else snuggles us. And to sit in prayer going, snuggle me, Jesus, it doesn't quite translate. However, what I want to say is, I did truly discover all the things I was looking for that I thought were in a relationship, in the right sort of relationship, really were given for free from the holy when the walls fell. Things like feeling utterly alive, feeling thoroughly loved, feeling filled with love, having a sensual relationship with life. You know how when we're in love, we're like, ooh, even the breeze feels sexy, right?
The chemistry is shocking, yeah.
Confidence, the feeling of being radiant, these things that we sort of look out there. Will you tell me I'm that? And while someone telling you some things can sort of throw the dog inside a bone for a time, it doesn't heal the constant split that manifests as not enough or all these kind of things. So I'm also not someone who's like, lock yourself in a nunnery for your lifetime until you can like get right with God and then, go date when you're 95. Because there's so much to experience and to learn. But had I known that the source, the true source of all of this was in right relationship with this, I think I might have put my efforts. I'm not sure I would have believed anyone who actually told me that, because the culture so conditions us.
Right.
And to me, any relationship, and I would like to use the word relating, because a relationship sounds like an it that we're inside of, right? And it's by its very definition kind of a concept. Relating is very alive. Here I am now relating to you, relating to my microphone, relating to the heat in my body from walking outside when it was warm, relating to my chair. As my attention drops into the vibrating moment, as I am conscious, and not just conscious upstairs in the lighthouse, but actually all the way down, receiving the moment sort of whole-bodied, and allowing the sense of light and breath and sensation to all be here. What's the end of that sentence? I'm done.
Maybe
I'm done now.
Yeah.
I didn't go shopping for anyone.
Arrived.
Ooh,
Yeah.
But then what we call the sacred is here. And now anything that walks into my sphere when I'm grounded in presence and simplicity, whatever walks into my sphere will be seen through the eyes of the holy, unless some undigested emotional stuff gets triggered, right? And what's been amazing here, as these structures and ways of seeing people have fallen, everyone is my soulmate. Everyone is delicious. Everyone is dear. They're all mine to love. They don't know it, and I don't really tell them. That might be alarming. Walk down the street, you're mine to love, baby. People get the wrong idea. But there's this love affair that goes also beyond humans, that is issuing forth from the undivided heart. And so, this is me just going, yay, raw spirituality, yay, raw everything that we do to turn toward what we most essentially are, to drop into the moment outside of the head and be with and meet these senses of not enough that send us hunting outside, befriend them, meet them, let them have their life, let them have their expression, and let them digest, which may include trauma resolution at times. But that's been just such an amazing discovery of my lifetime, which was so about finding that one. I wanted to find the one. When if I found the one, then we could do the other stuff, you know. And I can't say I ever found that one. I found ones, but the one, the main squeeze, the place where the juice is coming from, lives in a wormhole in my heart. You know, has taken up a residence right. You know, it's like the God and the goddess are in my heart, like a generating yum, because vision has fallen.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love how you've showed up today. This is really exactly what the conversations that we need to hear, right? And there's a few things you said. I'll see if I can track them. One, just backing up a little bit to using that, what do you want to call it? The angst of seeking something to be fulfilled, using that as the lead to lead us to the gold. It's an alchemical process, right? So we don't see that as a bad thing, that there's something that's forcing us to seek wholeness. We see it as an opportunity to turn towards wholeness, which is always here and always available, which goes back to what you were saying before about, and I know you know this, it's just a language thing where you said, and now the holy is here, or now it's here. It's like, that's always here, but how do we move away from it with our attention, right? And how well, this is what you teach in the holy work. How do we turn our attention back on what's always here, always now, always present, and always available, especially in a culture that's constantly pulling our attention away from that?
Yeah. And God bless us, everyone. If we carry trauma, or if we're activated, it can be very challenging to have a feeling that this moment is holy, when this moment feels like suffering, when this moment feels like pain, hell, terror, and things like this. I just want to say, even though the holy is always present, our attention can very much be in a kind of a hostile takeover, buried in some kind of trauma loop, etc. So I want to say that only because I watch people every day. Almost, I talk to someone who's been beating themselves up with spiritual truths, trying to apply them mentally and feeling that we're doing something wrong because everybody says God's here now, and how come I can't find God, whatever they mean by God. And the kind of being pointed toward the noticing presence that we are, being pointed toward the noticing presence that we are. I remember being in a satsang when I was younger with a spiritual teacher, and sitting there, she says it's here right now. So where is it? Looking all around the moment. Where is it? If it's here right now, like hide and seek, And I think the holy is here always. It's all of what's happening. And to realize that in a deeply known way is a grace. And that's important to say, because people can feel like, oh, you're over there with your big smile on your face, feeling all undivided, and you haven't told me how to do it. And I don't know how to do it because I'm over here suffering. It's like, yeah, brother, sister, sibling, I get that. I get exactly what it feels like to be in face punching division, trying to crawl my way to ending suffering. And so some of this is, while we must hold out the truth that right now we all are essentially holy. essentially that. You must hold in the other hand a mercy for the experience of what, because it's human. And yeah, I just want to speak up for all the people I see taking these things sometimes that teachers say and hurting themselves with it.
Yeah, good point. Well said.
And you know, I know in my young life, the hugest glimpses of something numinous came with another human being, came with falling in love, came with gazing, came with like something beautiful about them, or something beautiful being invoked in me through that phenomenon called falling in love, which I don't think was just purely oxytocin. That there is something about being beheld in a sacred manner, in a reverent manner. I remember once in my young life being with one of my sweethearts, and we were taking a shower together for the first time. Gonna get racy. And he said, "Oh, you look like a goddess." Mm-hmm. And he said it with such reverence in his voice. And that reverence that is free when we've been humbled. We are so grateful for breath itself. Like breath itself, I sometimes go outside and the beautiful day is just, it's too beautiful. My mind is just blown. It's like, how can trees even exist? How can the sky be so blue? You know, and that feeling when a relationship evokes a kind of a reverential acknowledgement of the preciousness of another human being, the beauty and the holiness of another human being, that we glimpse each other's numinosity. And that can be a very sweet piece of relationship. And we can feel like relationships supposed to feel like that forever. I got to break up with you now because you're no longer numinous. I'm going to go find another one who's numinous. Or I'm going to break up with you now because I don't feel numinous. I'm going to go find another guy who makes me feel numinous. And this is the kind of, in a way, bailing on our own self-development often, because when a relationship leaves the romantic period, now the real work starts, which is that my experience of sacredness, of myself as sacred, of you as sacred, is not your job to create for me. That's my existential puzzle, not something that I'm going to get from another perfect human being. Although, you know, some human beings are more able to bring reverence to another, more able to practice reverence in relationship. And that can be such a boon and such a bonus. But to me, the emphasis needs to be on, am I bringing reverence? Because when we're looking for someone else to do that stuff for us, we are in a baby state. Mm-hmm. We're not entering our adulthood. We're entering our mama pick me up and make it all better. And there's nothing wrong with those places living in us, but to live from them is to create unworkable relationships, because the day for us to have a mommy who picked us up is over, and nobody can do that for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that reminder. And I love going back to what you said about some of the numinous experiences you've had have come by being in relationship with another. And I have to say, from my experience as well, sometimes facing that darkest moment in my life has brought me to the numinous also. And there's a fine line, right, between the high and low, where the numinous is. And that, I don't know why that wanted to come forward, but it's my experience. And I think it's probably been yours as well, and others listening. And if it's helpful, maybe you can help us weave it into the conversation.
Well, things open us. Things evoke openness. And I know that in some of my love relationships, there was an awareness of movement and sound, of nonverbal relating, sexualities and nonverbal relating. And that in nonverbal relating, in gazing with someone, in dancing with someone, in making love with someone, we are, and being in our senses, we are dropped out of the conceptual, kind of in the immediacy of now. And so relationship can draw us and open us that way. For me, the dark night of the soul, AKA the incredible hammering that this system, the incredible, like kind of being under siege, the structure, the dark night opened me. It brought me to my knees. It cracked me open. It forced me to grieve and to dissolve all of these conceptual structures I didn't even know I had, and left me kind of naked and open. And so in that, talk about being radically opened, it was like living as radical openness. And I think it's the opening, the opening, the falling out of looking through the mind at everything, disconnected from the actual direct experience of being in every cell, that shrinks it deadens to look through. It seems like when I read about both sides of the brain, that it's largely the left side of the brain that's this sort of representational side of the brain that takes the aliveness and reifies it, objectifies it, makes it into an it. And increasingly, it seems in our culture, Western culture, that that's our way. And, I tell this story about this little boy I saw at an outdoor restaurant. He's like 1.5 or something, great big cottonwood tree. You've heard me say this. And he looks up, and he's just dumbfounded. He's just dumb and found in front of the street. It's like, and his dad, probably afraid that he's going to like have an idiot for progeny because the boy's just lost in what looks like idiocy, right? He's going, Johnny, tree. Can you say tree, Johnny, tree? Trade in the full-bodied experience of unity and awe with a tree for saying its conceptual name. Move away from, schmoozing with it, into being able to move back into a representation of it that we can then trade as objects like currency. And as we know, that's like lovemaking with a raincoat on. And
I've never done it.
I've never done it either, but mega prophylactic. I can't find you, sweetie, through all these concepts. I love how this is getting racy. It's fun. And so I can remember one time when I was a teenager, maybe I was in college, I had this moment where I was just really looking at my mom outside of all thoughts and general experience, like a very conscious moment of just seeing my mom. And she was like a brand new creature. And one of the things about being radically opened and having the capacity to not live anywhere but right here, to not be caught up in the past or the future of what's coming next or whatever, is that everything is just itself in technicolor. And so I have a sweetie. That's what I call him. He's my sweetie. He comes over, he makes me breakfast, and I see him, and it's like, lo and behold, like, here's a new moment. And you're here, and you look a little familiar, and I like your face, and I like the way you laugh. This is awesome. It's like so childlike, so innocent. And when anything sort of complex starts to get going, I always call for a love break, for a hug break. And I, basically invite him to hug me for 20 seconds. until things kind of chill out, which he readily and happily does. He lets me boss him around the hugging area. It's like, hey, guess what? Love first. I don't care what serious thing you're trying to bring into this moment, but it's never that grim. Whatever it is, it's never that grim. That's the sign we're under a delusion. Let's hug and laugh, and then maybe we can talk about something, because
Wow, it sounds like the perfect anecdote to the world. Like nothing so grim that we can't remember that we're all love and we're all connected. I mean,
yeah,
how can you
yeah,
do that
yeah.
in a collective, on a collective scale, would change everything.
Free hugs.
Oh yeah. Too many
Yeah,
people wearing raincoats.
yeah. I wanted to say also that when you said sacred relationship, there are forms of sacred relationship. For example, a relationship to a teacher is a sacred relationship. If that teacher is a valid teacher, there is something sacred about that relationship, something very wise about tending that relationship and learning how to get the most out of that relationship, bringing your whole self to that relationship, because there are some teachers who work through relationship and relating to their students very deeply. It's not just about here, read these 10 principles. It's about in contact with a being who is clear. You will learn, you will feel, you will discover things.
Yeah.
And same, oh, go ahead.
The word for that, I think it's a Persian word, sohbet.
Uh-huh. Heard that.
Sohbet, and it has to do with the dialogue between you and a spiritual teacher, or a spiritual teacher and a student, and the transmission of that, the sacred transmission of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can look a lot of ways. Sometimes it looks like you just feel like a blabbering, blibbering baby whenever the teacher comes, into view, because of whatever you've got undeveloped in yourself. And that's fine. That's not a problem. It's being with that young place is the order of the day, because it's not there by accident. There's something that wants to be known and to grow up. And then the other, and the sacredness of the role of teacher, the responsibility to be clear, to be true, to be honest, to be full of care, full of consciousness, to not give in to unconscious lower drives that are, serving the me instead of serving the student's freedom. And then also the sacred relationship of Sangha, which, like in my work, I really talk about these are different kinds of relationships. And depending upon the container of a work, Sangha you can be friends, or you can not be friends at all. You can just be coming together for the practices. And those relationships, particularly in my work, because we hold a safe and sacred space for each other in partner practice, in small groups, in the events, people learn how to hold that kind of space for each other. There's a kind of a sacred bond in being together in the name of the Lord, so to speak, in presence with this beautiful work of the heart. There's something very sacred about those relationships, and it makes sense to bring reverence and consciousness to tending them.
Yeah.
And this kind of training to bring consciousness and care to all our relations, as Indigenous tribes sometimes say, all our relations, everything, everywhere we look, to bring consciousness and care to even objects, to be walking in a loving manner on the earth with our feet, that every moment of relating, there is the opportunity to bring our whole selves, our whole heart here to play in the field of connection and preciousness. And when we're feeling alienated, when we're feeling pain, when we're feeling fury, etc., it's difficult to access our own preciousness, never mind the preciousness of other people, because we've taken a spear into our preciousness in a way, and our relationship to our grief. We haven't been taught reverence for ourselves, for our bodies, for our breath, for our emotions, nor how to treat each other in that, I think it was Martin Buber coined it, I-thou relationship, like I-thou, like I bow to the light in you versus, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
How can I manipulate you to feed one of my lower needs kind of way of seeing another being.
Mm-hmm. And I find there's an attraction to being in relationship to the invisible world that is sacred for me, like chi, right? The energy that's and the intelligence that's operating through every form, like the little boy with the tree, like, know that he's not just observing the physical object of the tree, but all the energy and the interaction that it's having with all the other pieces of nature around it, that he's tuned into something that we've been, we don't say, steered away from through our senses and our conditioning. And I like to steer people back towards that invisible reality that is these hidden forces and structures in our reality that are shaping everything.
Yeah. And to find ourselves dissolving in that field, like whatever it is we think of as our own solidity of me and the tree. And suddenly in that moment of wonder, we're falling into a kind of a vibrating field where me and the tree are one, where it's just this.
And there's an exchange and a conversation happening all the time with our energy, the energy around our field and the field of every living thing. And to be able to notice that on a subtle level as you're walking by all the trees, and then one in particular, there's a pull, there's a magnetism there. There's some kind of exchange happening that's a reciprocity. And to, that there's something mysterious that we may never be able to conceptualize of what's actually happening, but can we stop and be present and feel that exchange? There's an opportunity.
It seems so much of what we're talking about is explored through feeling rather than necessarily thinking.
Your sensitivity.
How that capacity to feel, not just to feel kind of the big emotions, but to actually feel and sense. And that, to me, the opening that I had opened the body to be ever so much more sensitive to energies. And now it seems that I move through an entirely oceanic, energetic world rather than a world of objects. It's like the energy moving. It's all just like a collage of vibration. And I often am resting in a crowd as a field of vibration. And I remember Pamela Wilson once said, and I walk down the street and people think I'm a person. It's like you're sitting there just dissolved in all, but you look like a person and you need to live your person life, whatever that looks like.
Well, that person is anchoring that field.
Which is another part of relationship in the sacred, which is playing in the field of the Lord, so to speak. That it doesn't take someone who has had a radical awakening to be aware of the joy of being alive and the humor and absurdity of human life, and what fun it is to find a playmate of any sort to relate in a kind of a sacred play way, which is humor, which is bubbling, which is celebrating the absurdity, which is kind of like talk about the energetic world. It's like the vibrating joy of this time together is bigger than anything else in the sphere. It's like that comes to the fore, that sense of the divine play, holy amidst whatever the environment or the happenings in the life.
Yeah, that's where it's happening, the exchange of information that consciousness is having with itself in different forms. This is what it's all about, gathering data on itself through that exchange. And I don't know if learning about itself is true. I think it's just the play, like you said, that divine play of the infinite possibility. And this is one right now happening in all of our experiences. There's an infinite possibility unfolding. And if we're not present to it, it's not fully anchored, if you will. It's not fully registered or digested. Then we keep going on to gathering the next meal and not digesting that, and collecting all these undigested experiences and feeling irritated and agitated, like we would if we are eating food we can't digest. So this slowing down, which is something I know you speak highly of, and you teach us this method of really, okay, let's slow down here. Let's go slow here, because we can gather more through our awareness when we slow down.
Yeah. And the mind zooms over the moment like a fighter jet, just zooming past the terrain of direct experience. And it turns out that our life is here in this immediacy of direct experience, and we're missing it because we're wrapped up in the fighter jet of the conceptual. And pretty soon our time with someone has gone right by. Our life has gone right by while our attention is fused on thought. Like, did we taste that strawberry? Did we feel that hug with our dad? Were we there for it? Like, we're here for it. That seems to be, I mean, what can we say about the goals of the holy? Who knows? But it sure does seem that we are here for it at a very essential level. We are here for this.
Yeah.
Not adding or subtracting or interpreting, just we are here for this. That's kind of the whole tamale right there.
Because that's what consciousness is here for. And when we, as the personality or the passenger consciousness, can be in alignment with, we are here for this as consciousness in this body, having this experience, then everything's lined up. There's not the consciousness that's here and present, and then this other aspect that's off to the next thing.
Yeah.
So that alignment of those two really brings this experience of being, it's the presence.
Yeah. And when the presence looks out of one set of eyes into the presence in another set of eyes, it's like party. I remember a fellow teacher, we had lunch, there were 4 of us there, and I sat down in my seat and he turned to me and he said, let's download each other. It's like a wine tasting, to just be together and sense and breathe and notice and mingle. And the taste of any two, never mind the taste of a group, is a different, and depending upon the moment as well. But we are unique bundles of energetic vibes. And it's just so fascinating. You can feel that we are exchanging energetically, that there's stuff happening. It's so alive when you meet someone who's just open to being like that. Mm-hmm. I also want to say, in terms of sacred relationship, sometimes we can have someone in our lives who calls us to ourselves. And it's not necessarily a typical romantic relationship or whatever the heck we call those things, which, I'm just like up to here with the cultural template. Like, who cares, right? Which one are you having sex with? Which ones are you having sex with? And all of that stuff. But sometimes we can have someone in our lives. It could be an aunt. It could be a coworker who has a look inside our deeper self and calls that out, challenges that, or asks us questions that, this is the role of a spiritual teacher, but this is sometimes a role that if we give someone, because it's obviously not something, we're not here to go teach each other without permission, right? But sometimes we find someone who just can see into our essence, and in the fray, in the world of the false and the confused, can ding, ding, almost like through a question or a statement, kind of call us more deeply into ourselves. And it's lovely to have a friend or two in our lives, or a teacher, or some kind of ally who says, okay, what's important here? And reflects back to us things like, where's your heart? Where's your heart in all this that you're doing? Is your heart engaged? Or, those kind of deep questions. And that's a sacred relationship. Like relating in the sacred. And we haven't even talked about things like, sometimes when I have a couple that's having a struggle, I will invite them to sit together or to pray together. Or I worked with a couple people who, one was a very devout Christian and one was not, but he could get down with the Jesus thing. And so I said, he didn't know what to do when she started to kind of decompose right before him, just have a hard time. And I said, invite her to pray with you. How about we sit down and pray? And the relating in a life, whether it's, families go to church together, we can do yoga together, we can chant together. My sweetie and I, he has a Sufi teacher, and I don't really have a spiritual practice because, my life is brimming with light and whatever. But I like to do things like that. I like to do my own dyads and things. And so we have on and off, and we just reinstituted it. We sit together for a period of time, then we gaze together for a period of time after we have breakfast. And what a sweet way to be with each other, especially in a relationship that has gotten a bit too heady, a bit too conflicted, a bit too focused on each other as adversarial objects instead of, oh, I, thou. And so to just be together, whether it's meditating, gazing, taking a walk, in silence, holding hands, just sitting on a bench, breathing, to be in spiritual practice in a space that invokes the holy really adds a beautiful dimension to a relationship. And that's really a way, especially for those of us who lack discipline, it's really a great way to use a bond, to use a relationship, or even a Sangha member, and we do that in our programs, to use someone to help you remember, to help you to, we could do that with exercising and everything else, but to call us through some kind of agreed upon form into remembrance is also another way that relationship can be, used to invoke the sacred.
Mm. Well, I really appreciate how you're bringing all these terms like the holy and Lord and God and Jesus into the
I like them all.
conversation, but there's no particular affiliation to any religious belief. It just really is lovely that, we can speak about spirituality and use terms that may or may not work for people and let people find their own terms. But the essence is the same. It's coming to the moment in reverence for life and what's in front of us in the moment, and making ourselves as available as possible, not just mentally, but viscerally.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it reminds me also something that you said about respecting each other's gods, so to speak, that when we get together with someone, we can have an idea that we're more spiritual than they are because they don't do anything groovy and new age, you know, et cetera. And it's a very important area. I think our spiritual life, whatever that is, whether it's going fishing, you know, is an incredibly personal, sacred, and intimate part of our lives. And to try and get someone to adhere to our way of seeing spirituality, um, to me, that's one of the areas of kind of spaciousness in relationship that's so necessary to actually protect and foster and support your person's native way, natural way of connecting, of worshiping, of finding silence and comfort and soothing and sweetness. And it may not have a deity attached to it. But if you watch any human being, most human beings are doing something because we're so hungry for that dimension. Most human beings are doing something that cracks something open for them, whether it's listening to a certain kind of music or, you know, hiking or rock climbing or fishing. You know, there's all kinds of ways to kind of bring ourselves up against something greater than ourselves. And I feel like bowing to and protecting each other's differences around that, because there isn't one path or tradition or way for everyone. We're so unique in what opens us and sets our hearts on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you know, really what a spiritual teacher is that presence that cracks something open, and not because they're trying to, just because of what they carry, you know, what the field, you know, it's like how in some traditions you just sit in the field of a spiritually awakened being and something gets cracked open in you. There's no words. It's just a silent sitting in some cases. So yeah, that's that dropping into what's here and now. It's not something that's gonna, you know, happen in the future, or something that's related to all the work you did in the past. People can come who have never done any spiritual study and have the same cracking open as someone who's studied their whole life.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there are beings who don't call themselves spiritual or particularly spiritual, who are
Yeah.
just open. They're
Yeah.
just utterly, deliciously, innocently open.
I'm
And
married
we
to one.
say again,
I'm married to one.
yay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not interested in any of it. He just is it, you know. He
Yeah.
doesn't have to go looking for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very grounding, and yeah, there's a lot of innocence there.
That's it, isn't it? Innocence and openness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to say again, we can invoke that in each other. You know, like a being like that can invoke that in us.
Yeah. I used to try to change him to be like me, and now I'm trying to be more like him. That's the awakening.
That's the humbling.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to just thank you again for your time and showing up each time we do this, just so available and ready and tuned in and flowing with generosity.
Oh,
I want to
sure.
share again just that you're available for people to work with individually, and you offer classes, and that people can find more information about your offers at jeanniezandi.com. And
Yeah. And we're doing a 3-class series in November called Essentially Human
mm,
that really looks at humanness and mercy for oneself, and both living with the light that we are and then the kind of limited bumbler that we are, and how all of that is spiritual and how to reckon with all of that. So that's going to be pretty fun, and I think a really great introduction to what it is that I'm up to. because it's so grounded in humanness and the celebration of human beingness, you know?
Yeah, the going back to the ability to laugh at ourselves.
Exactly.
I love
Yeah.
it. And
Thank you,
I
Cindy.
love the background with your beautiful hibiscus flower right there.
That's so funny. Somebody captured it and said something about Frida Kahlo on
So
one of my,
pretty.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I love when this thing, sometimes it puts out three at once. It's like festival.
It's happy.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity. It's really always fun to meander about in the worlds of inquiry with you.
Oh, I love that statement. I have to write that down. Meander about in the worlds of
In
inquiry,
the fields of inquiry
fields of inquiry.
or worlds of inquiry. I don't know. I don't know what I said.
All of the above. We'll do it again for sure.
All right. Mwah.
Love,
Love.
love to all. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.